The morning sun cast long shadows across the Afghan mountains as a single shot echoed through the valley. 2 miles away, a high-value Taliban leader fell before he heard the sound of the rifle that killed him. The impossible had just become reality. For decades, military experts had agreed no human could make an accurate shot beyond 2,500 meters. The physics were simply too complex, the variables too numerous. Yet, on that October morning in 2019, someone did the impossible. This is the story of that shot and the three warriors whose lives would forever intertwine because of it. The harsh desert wind whipped across Forward Operating Base Outlaw as Staff Sergeant Alexandra Alex Hawkins meticulously cleaned her Barrett M82A 150 caliber rifle. Her hands moved with practiced precision, each component receiving careful attention. The massive weapon felt like an extension of herself after 3 tours of duty, its 29-inch barrel and 14-kilogram weight as familiar as an old friend. This wasn't just any Barrett. It had belonged to her father, Roger Hawkins, a legendary sniper from the Gulf War who had passed away from cancer 6 months earlier. The rifle featured a proprietary recoil mechanism and custom sight mount her father had personally designed. According to his will, it now belonged to her, along with the extraordinary legacy that came with it. Alex had grown up on a ranch in Montana where shooting was as natural as breathing. Roger had taught her to fire a rifle when she was just 8 years old. By 16, she could hit a tin can from 500 yards. But nothing in her childhood had prepared her for what awaited her today. The military base buzzed with unusual activity. SEAL Team 6 had arrived during the night, and tension hung in the air like the desert heat. These elite soldiers rarely worked with regular army units, so their presence signaled something momentous. Through her scope, Alex observed the SEAL team leader, Commander Michael Reynolds, briefing his men near the helicopter landing zone. Reynolds was a legend in Special Forces circles at 42. He had completed more high-risk missions than most operators saw in a lifetime. His team respected him not just for his tactical skills, but for his ability to bring everyone home alive. What few people knew was that Reynolds carried a deep wound. 2 years earlier, in Iraq, he had lost 2 men during an operation gone wrong. He blamed inadequate sniper support for the failure, creating a deep mistrust of anyone outside his immediate team, especially female snipers, whom he considered unsuitable for combat roles despite official military policy. Alex continued her maintenance routine until a shadow fell across her work area. Looking up, she found Commander Reynolds standing before her, his face etched with the weight of command and unconcealed skepticism. Staff Sergeant Hawkins, he acknowledged with stiff formality. "Sir," she responded, coming to attention. "At ease, Sergeant." Reynolds gestured to her rifle. "I'm told you're one of the best long-range shooters in the Army. That true?" Alex nodded once. "I can hit what I aim at, sir." Reynolds studied her with narrowed eyes. Tomorrow's operation requires precision shots at extreme range. Intelligence indicates hostages held in a compound with heavily fortified approach routes. We'll need overwatch from a distance. How far, sir? Preliminary calculations suggest over 3,000 meters. Alex kept her expression neutral despite the shock. The current confirmed kill record was just over 2,500 meters. What Reynolds was suggesting approached the impossible. "I've made successful shots at 2,800 meters in controlled environments, Commander," she replied carefully. "Combat conditions add complexity." Reynolds' jaw tightened. "This isn't a shooting range, Sergeant. Lives depend on this. My men depend on this." The implication hung in the air. He didn't trust her capabilities. Before Alex could respond, another voice joined the conversation. "She can make the shot, Reynolds, if anyone can." Both turned to see Colonel James "Iron Jim" Sullivan approaching. At 68, the silver-haired veteran moved with the purposeful gait of a man half his age. Sullivan was a legend from another era, one of the most decorated snipers from the Cold War, with confirmed kills across conflicts that had shaped America's military doctrine. "Colonel," Reynolds acknowledged, his tone respectful but guarded. "With all due respect, this mission requires the absolute best. I've requested our SEAL sniper team." Sullivan's weathered face creased in a slight smile. They sent her because I recommended her, Commander. And they sent me because this shot is going to make history. Sullivan turned to Alex. Brief the commander on your qualifications, Staff Sergeant. 8 years of service, sir. 3 tours in Afghanistan. Graduated top of my class at sniper school. Current record in combat conditions is 2,310 meters. Reynolds remained unconvinced. Colonel, my men are going into a hot zone tomorrow. The entire operation hinges on eliminating sentries without alerting the compound. She won't miss, Sullivan interrupted firmly. An uncomfortable silence followed as Reynolds weighed his options. Finally, he nodded curtly. Be ready for mission briefing at 1,800 hours, both of you. He turned and walked away, his posture rigid with barely contained frustration. Once Reynolds was out of earshot, Alex turned to Sullivan. Thank you for the confidence, sir, but he's right to be concerned. That distance exceeds anything I've done in combat. Sullivan's expression grew serious. You know what makes a great sniper, Hawkins? It's not just skill. It's knowing exactly where the edge of possible lies and having the courage to step right up to it. He looked toward the mountains. Sometimes, when the stakes are high enough, you have to step beyond it. Alex followed his gaze to the harsh landscape that would become her shooting range. Permission to speak freely, sir? Always. Why did you really recommend me for this? There are other snipers with similar qualifications. Sullivan considered her question carefully. Because 25 years ago in Desert Storm, I made a shot that saved a young lieutenant named Thomas Reynolds from an Iraqi ambush. He paused, letting the connection sink in. That lieutenant was Michael's father. Alex's eyes widened in surprise. Does the commander know? He knows his father was saved by a sniper. He doesn't know it was me. Sullivan's eyes carried the weight of decades of service. Some debts span generations, Hawkins. I saved his father. Now you're going to help me save his men. The mission briefing room hummed with tension as soldiers gathered around the tactical display. Satellite imagery showed a compound nestled against a mountain face in the notorious Korengal Valley, known to American troops as the Valley of Death. Reynolds moved with confidence, detailing each phase of the operation with precision. 12 hostages confirmed, including 3 American diplomats and 4 aid workers. Taliban splinter group, well-armed and disciplined. They've threatened executions if any rescue attempt is detected. He traced a finger along approach routes, all crossing open ground. The problem is exposure. There's no cover for the last 800 meters. They'll see us coming long before we reach the perimeter. Reynolds continued, his voice carrying a subtle note of concern that only Alex and Sullivan noticed. Staff Sergeant Hawkins will eliminate the sentries from this ridge here. He indicated a mountain position that seemed impossibly distant from the target. One of the SEAL team members spoke up. Sir, that's over 3 clicks. Can anyone really hit a target at that range? All eyes turned to Alex. She felt the weight of their doubt, but kept her voice steady. The distance is approximately 3,247 meters based on laser range finding. At that range, we'll need to account for Coriolis effect, spin drift, temperature gradients, and wind variations across the valley. She moved to the map, pointing out key factors. The bullet will take over 4 seconds to reach the target. During that time, Earth's rotation will affect the trajectory. Even barometric pressure becomes critical at this distance. The room had gone silent, the magnitude of what she was proposing sinking in. Reynolds watched her with narrowed eyes. And you're confident you can make this shot, Sergeant? Before Alex could answer, Sullivan stepped forward. Perhaps a demonstration would be more convincing than technical explanations, Commander. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. What kind of demonstration? A shooting competition. Your best SEAL sniper against Sergeant Hawkins. Long-range targets, increasing difficulty, this evening. Reynolds considered the proposal, then nodded slowly. Fine. Chief Warrant Officer Mitchell is our sniper specialist. Range competition at 1,700 hours. He turned back to the tactical display. If Sergeant Hawkins proves herself capable, we proceed as planned. If not, we delay until our SEAL sniper team arrives. As the briefing concluded, Reynolds approached Alex directly. "Sergeant, I need absolute certainty. Not confidence, not hope. Certainty. Can you make these shots?" Alex met his gaze unflinchingly. "3 shots, 3 kills. I won't let you down, sir." "You'd better not," Reynolds replied quietly, "because if you do, people die." The makeshift shooting range had been set up on the eastern edge of the base. Targets had been placed at various distances, the farthest just over a mile away, far short of tomorrow's requirement, but at the limit of what could be arranged. A small crowd gathered to watch the competition. The SEALs clustered around Mitchell, offering encouragement. Alex stood alone, methodically checking her equipment until Sullivan joined her. "Don't let him get in your head," the colonel advised, nodding toward Reynolds, who stood watching from a distance. "He's a good officer, but he's carrying ghosts from his last operation." Alex nodded. "I understand his concern, sir." Sullivan studied her for a moment. "Most snipers I've known are either cold calculators or passionate artists. The calculators trust the math above all. The artists feel the shot in their bones. Which are you, Hawkins?" She considered the question as she loaded her rifle. "My father always said I was both, sir. He taught me to trust the math, but listen to my instincts." "Your father sounds like a wise man." Alex smiled slightly at the memory. "He'd drill me for hours on windage calculations while other kids were watching TV. But he also taught me something he called befriending the wind, feeling it rather than just measuring it." The range officer called for attention. First stage targets at 800, 1,000, and 1,200 meters. 3 shots each. Highest score advances. Mitchell went first. The SEAL sniper was exceptional. His shots grouped tightly on each target, all within the highest scoring rings. The SEALs cheered each successful hit, their confidence evident. When Alex's turn came, the range fell quiet. She took her position behind the rifle, her movements deliberate and precise. Breathing slowed, heart rate controlled. She emptied her mind of everything except the shot. First target, 800 meters. Wind from the right at 5 miles per hour. Slight elevation adjustment. Inhale, half exhale. Hold. The Barrett roared, the recoil flowing through her body like a familiar dance partner. Perfect center hit. Second target, 1,000 meters. Same process, same result. Third target, 1,200 meters. Another perfect shot. The competition continued through increasingly difficult stages. Moving targets, reduced target sizes, varying wind conditions. Both shooters performed flawlessly until the final stage. "Final challenge," the range officer announced. "Single shot, 1,760 meters at a target measuring 10 inches by 10 inches. Shooters will contend with crosswind conditions and changing light as the sun sets." Mitchell went first. He took his time calculating, carefully making minute adjustments to his scope. The Macmillan TAC 338 with Night Force ATACR sight represented the pinnacle of SEAL sniper equipment. The shot rang out a near miss just outside the target boundary. Mitchell cursed quietly. Wind shifted at the last second. Alex took her position. The sun dipped below the mountains, casting long shadows across the range. The wind had indeed become erratic, swirling unpredictably. She closed her eyes briefly, feeling the gentle touch of the wind on her face, sensing its patterns. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "The wind tells stories, Alex. Learn to listen." When she opened her eyes, she made adjustments that contradicted the readings on her wind meter. Sullivan noticed, but said nothing. Alex settled behind the rifle, breathed once deeply, then entered the focused state that elite snipers achieve, a place where time slows and senses sharpen. The shot broke cleanly. 4 seconds later, the target showed a perfect center hit. A murmur ran through the gathered soldiers. Even Mitchell looked impressed. "Hell of a shot, Sergeant," he acknowledged with professional respect. Reynolds approached, his expression unreadable. He studied the target confirmation, then turned to Alex. "You've made your point, Sergeant. We go with the original plan." He glanced at Sullivan. "Colonel, I'd appreciate your input on the final approach vectors." As Reynolds walked away with Sullivan, Mitchell approached Alex. That last adjustment you made, the SEAL said quietly. You weren't following the wind meter. Alex nodded. The meter gives you point data, but wind moves in patterns across terrain. Sometimes you have to feel it rather than just measure it. Mitchell considered this. Tomorrow's shot is more than twice this distance. Do you really think you can make it? Alex closed her rifle case before answering. I have to, don't I? Night fell over the base as final preparations continued. Alex sat alone in the small armory, making minute adjustments to her rifle and calculating ballistic tables for tomorrow's shot. The door opened and Colonel Sullivan entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might need this, he said, placing one beside her. Thank you, sir. Alex accepted the coffee gratefully. Just finishing my calculations. At that distance, even the ambient temperature gradient between ground and my position becomes significant. Sullivan nodded, pulling up a stool. I remember my first impossible shot. Panama, 1,989. Operation Just Cause. Had to take out a guard at 1,400 meters in heavy rain. Back then, that was pushing the envelope. How did you manage it? Instinct, mostly. The conditions were so bad that the ballistic tables became academic. I had to feel the shot. He paused, studying her. That's what I saw in you today, that rare combination of scientific precision and natural instinct. They sat in comfortable silence before Sullivan spoke again. You should know something about Reynolds. His father was more than just a soldier I saved. Thomas Reynolds was one of the finest officers I ever served with. After I made that shot in Desert Storm, he tracked me down to thank me. We became friends. Does Reynolds know you knew his father that well? Sullivan shook his head. Military life keeps people apart as often as it brings them together. I lost touch with Thomas after he retired. When I recognized Michael's name on the deployment roster, I requested this assignment. Some connections transcend time. Alex considered this revelation. Is that why you're so confident in me? Because of your connection to Reynolds? No. Sullivan answered without hesitation. I'm confident in you because you remind me of your father. Roger had the same gift you do, understanding both the science and the art of the impossible shot. As Sullivan reached the door, Alex called after him. Colonel, thank you for believing in me. The old soldier smiled slightly. Belief has nothing to do with it. I've seen what you can do. Now make sure Reynolds sees it too. Before dawn, Alex knelt beside her cot. From her pocket, she removed a worn brass casing, the remains of the first bullet her father had ever helped her fire. She held it tightly in her palm, drawing strength from the connection to her past. Steady pressure, she whispered, echoing her father's constant instruction. Let the rifle surprise you when it fires. When she stepped outside into the pre-dawn darkness, she found Sullivan and Reynolds waiting. The base had come alive with the controlled chaos of pre-mission preparations. No one spoke as they loaded into the Blackhawk. The weight of the mission created a bubble of silence that even the roar of rotors couldn't penetrate. Alex sat with her rifle case between her knees, mentally rehearsing every step to come. As the helicopter lifted off, she caught Reynolds watching her in the dim red light of the cabin. His expression was unreadable, but she understood the message in his eyes. Don't fail. The flight lasted 40 minutes, carrying them deep into Taliban-controlled territory. When they reached the insertion point, a rocky ledge high on a mountainside, the pilots executed a perfect touch and go landing. The Special Forces team and their sniper support disembarked before the helicopter disappeared back into the night sky. Alex followed Sullivan and Reynolds along a narrow path winding between massive boulders. The air was thin at this altitude, making every step laborious. Despite the weight of her equipment, she moved with the quiet grace all snipers develop, placing each foot with deliberate care to avoid dislodging even the smallest stone. After 2 hours of climbing, they reached the observation post. The eastern sky had begun to lighten, painting the mountains with soft golden light. Below them lay the valley, and in the distance, the compound where the hostages were being held. Alex immediately began setting up her position. The Barrett rifle was mounted on a specialized tripod designed for extreme long-range shooting. Her spotter scope was positioned perfectly to allow Sullivan to observe the target area. Using her laser rangefinder, Alex confirmed the distance, 3,247 meters. Through her scope, the compound looked like a miniature model, human figures moving like tiny ants. "I count 6 tangos on perimeter patrol," she reported, her voice professionally detached. "2 more on the rooftop. One appears to be the leader, taller figure with black beard, giving instructions to the others." Reynolds nodded, studying the compound through his binoculars. "That matches our intelligence. The bearded one is Ahmad Zaraki, regional commander. He's your primary target. Taking him out will create maximum confusion," Sullivan added. Alex began her final calculations. The morning conditions were nearly perfect: minimal wind, stable temperature, excellent visibility. But perfection was an illusion at this range. She knew that even the slightest error would result in a complete miss. "Crosswind at target 1.5 miles per hour, Sullivan reported, reading from his weather meter. "Barometric pressure stable. Temperature at firing position 48 degrees Fahrenheit, likely 52 degrees Fahrenheit at mid-valley, possibly 56 degrees Fahrenheit at target." Alex made the necessary adjustments to her scope. The calculations required her to aim several feet above and to the left of her actual target, trusting in physics and mathematics to guide the bullet to its destination. "SEAL team moving to position Alpha," Reynolds announced quietly. "We'll hold there until your shot confirms successful elimination of the primary target." "Target acquired," Alex whispered as Zaraki emerged from the main building into the early morning sunlight. He stood in the doorway, issuing orders to his men, completely unaware that he was being observed from over 2 miles away. "Send it when ready," Sullivan confirmed. Alex controlled her breathing, feeling her heart rate slow as she entered the focused state that all elite snipers achieve. The crosshairs settled on empty air, the precise point where mathematics told her the bullet needed to travel. She applied steady pressure to the trigger, just as her father had taught her decades earlier. The rifle fired with a tremendous boom that echoed across the valley. The massive 50 caliber round began its journey, traveling at over 2,700 feet per second, yet still requiring more than 4 seconds to reach its distant target. 4 seconds. In combat, 4 seconds is an eternity. Alex remained perfectly still, maintaining her position behind the rifle. Sullivan watched through his spotter scope as the bullet traced its invisible path across the valley. "Impact," Sullivan announced with quiet certainty. "Target down. Perfect shot." Through her scope, Alex observed the chaos that followed. The other terrorists ran outside, confused and panicked, looking in all directions for the source of the attack. "That's impossible," one of Reynolds' men whispered. "Nobody makes shots like that." Reynolds said nothing, but his expression had transformed from doubt to amazement. He signaled his team to prepare for movement. The chaos following Alex's shot gave them exactly what they needed: a disorganized enemy with no clear leadership. "Sergeant," Reynolds said, his voice carrying new respect, "we're beginning our approach. Maintain overwatch and eliminate any threats to the team." "Understood, Commander," Alex replied, already scanning the compound for secondary targets. As the SEALs began their approach across open ground, Alex kept watch through her scope. The team moved with perfect precision, using every bit of available cover rocks, small depressions, scattered vegetation as they closed the distance to the compound. After 12 minutes, Reynolds' voice came through the radio again. "We've reached position Bravo, 300 meters from the perimeter." His tone changed abruptly. "Wait. I have eyes on 2 previously unidentified tangos in hardened positions at the main entrance. Heavy weapons behind concrete barriers." Alex shifted her scope to the entrance. The intelligence had missed 2 guards in fortified positions, armed with machine guns. Exactly the kind of hidden threat that had cost Reynolds his men 2 years ago. "Can you neutralize them?" Reynolds asked, tension evident in his voice. Alex studied the targets through her scope. They were partially concealed behind concrete barriers, making the shots even more difficult than her first one. At this distance, she would need to thread her bullets through narrow gaps in their cover. "I need precise coordinates," she replied calmly. Reynolds provided exact locations. Alex made her calculations, adjusting for the slight increase in wind speed since her first shot. "Taking the shot," she announced. The first guard was crouched behind a wall with only his head and shoulders visible. Alex breathed, focused, and fired. 4 seconds later, the guard collapsed. The second terrorist spun around, trying to understand what had happened to his companion. Before he could find cover, Alex had already chambered another round and made her adjustments. Her second bullet traveled the incredible distance and found its mark with deadly precision. "Both tangas down," Sullivan confirmed. "Entrance clear." Moving to final position, Reynolds acknowledged, the relief in his voice palpable. From her distant perch, Alex watched as the SEAL team breached the compound and cleared it room by room. The operation proceeded with textbook precision. Within 20 minutes, Reynolds reported back, "All hostages secure. 4 tangos neutralized, 2 captured. No friendly casualties." The mission was a complete success. As the extraction helicopters approached, Alex began packing her equipment. The historic nature of what she had just accomplished hadn't fully registered yet. She had made not 1 but 3 shots at a distance that military experts had considered impossible. Sullivan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You just rewrote the sniper handbook, Sergeant. Those shots will be studied for generations." Alex allowed herself a small smile. "Just doing my job, sir." "No," Sullivan said seriously. "You just expanded the definition of what your job can be." When they returned to base, news of Alex's achievement spread quickly. What had been skepticism before the mission transformed into stunned admiration. Soldiers who had questioned her abilities now regarded her with a mixture of respect and awe. That evening, as Alex cleaned her rifle, Commander Reynolds approached. "Sergeant Hawkins," he said, his earlier doubt replaced with sincere respect, "I owe you an apology, and my thanks." Alex stood. "No apology necessary, sir. Your concerns were valid." Reynolds shook his head. "I let past experience cloud my judgment. What you did today." He paused, searching for adequate words. "It wasn't just impressive. It was impossible. Yet you did it anyway." "Sometimes the impossible just takes a little longer to calculate, sir." A rare smile crossed Reynolds' face. "My father used to say something similar." He extended his hand. "Thank you for saving my men today." As they shook hands, Alex felt the connection that sometimes forms between warriors who have faced death together. It wasn't friendship exactly, but something equally valuable, mutual respect forged in the crucible of combat. Unknown to either of them, Sullivan observed this exchange from a distance, a satisfied expression on his weathered face. The debt that spanned generations had been repaid, but history was not finished with them yet. Mere days after her record-breaking achievement, Alex found herself in a secure briefing room with Sullivan, Reynolds, and General William Harrison, commander of special operations in the region. The air buzzed with urgency. "We've received critical intelligence," Harrison announced, activating a secure display. "Mahmoud al-Zarqawi, the IED specialist responsible for 43 American casualties, has been located at this compound in Syria." The display showed a heavily fortified complex surrounded by desert. "He's meeting with representatives to transfer chemical weapon components. This is a one-time opportunity." Sullivan studied the topographical data. "What's the approach?" "That's the problem," Harrison replied. "The location is virtually impenetrable by conventional means. Heavy security, advanced surveillance, multiple defensive layers." Reynolds zoomed in on the digital map. "Nearest viable position appears to be this ridgeline. Preliminary calculations suggest 3,800 meters to target." Alex felt a chill. They were asking her to beat her own record by over 500 meters. "Environmental conditions?" she asked. "Complex," Harrison admitted. "Mountain terrain creates unpredictable wind patterns, temperature differentials between valley, floor, and surrounding peaks." "Probability assessment?" Reynolds looked to Alex directly. She performed quick mental calculations. With standard equipment and conditions under 40%. The room fell silent. I'll need to test the environmental conditions personally, Alex decided. On-site assessment of wind patterns and atmospheric layering. Harrison nodded. Already arranged. You deploy in 6 hours. The Syria mission was meticulously planned. A joint team established a hidden observation post overlooking the target compound while Alex mapped the complex atmospheric conditions. For 2 days, she studied the patterns, identifying recurring cycles in wind and temperature. The morning of the operation arrived with perfect clarity. Alex's Barrett rifle, now fitted with experimental ammunition designed for extreme long-range shooting, was positioned precisely. As the sun crested the horizon, a convoy of vehicles entered the compound. The primary target, Al-Zarqawi, was confirmed present. Alex performed her final calculations, made her adjustments, and took the shot. At 3,847 meters, over 2.33 miles, the bullet found its mark. 2 additional targets fell in rapid succession as the SEAL team began their approach to secure intelligence material. But as the team prepared for extraction, disaster struck. Their position was discovered by a patrol. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions. Exfil compromised. Reynolds' voice crackled through the radio, taking heavy fire. Alex and Sullivan moved to defensive positions as bullets impacted around them. The extraction helicopter was still 7 minutes out. Through her combat optics, Alex spotted 3 attackers attempting to flank their position from the west. 3 tangos moving up the western gully, she reported calmly. Taking careful aim, she eliminated 2 before they could establish firing positions. The third disappeared behind a boulder. The distinctive sound of an incoming helicopter reached them, the promised extraction arriving on schedule, but the insurgents heard it too, and their fire intensified. 30 seconds, Sullivan shouted above the gunfire. Prepare to move. The helicopter appeared over the ridgeline. The door gunner provided suppressing fire as the aircraft maneuvered into position. Go, 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 Sullivan ordered, directing the support team toward the helicopter. Alex provided covering fire as her teammates made the dash to the aircraft. She was preparing to follow when movement caught her peripheral vision, the third insurgent, emerging from cover with an RPG launcher on his shoulder. Without hesitation, she pivoted and fired, dropping the man before he could launch. But in that moment of distraction, another insurgent had acquired her position. The impact felt like being struck by a hammer. Alex stumbled, searing pain spreading across her left side. Looking down, she saw blood spreading rapidly across her tactical vest. "Hawkins is hit!" someone shouted. Through a haze of pain, she felt strong hands lifting her, dragging her toward the helicopter. Sullivan's face appeared above her, his expression tense but determined. "Stay with me, Alex," he ordered. "That's not a request. That's a direct order." The world narrowed to a tunnel of sound and sensation, the roar of the helicopter, the continuing crack of gunfire, the vibration as the aircraft lifted away from the ridgeline. Through it all, the steady pressure of Sullivan's hands as he worked to control her bleeding. "How bad?" she managed to ask, her voice sounding distant to her own ears. "I've seen worse," Sullivan replied with forced casualness. "You'll be telling this story at the officers' club for years." Alex tried to smile, but lacked the strength. The darkness at the edges of her vision expanded, consciousness slipping away despite her efforts to hold on. The last thing she heard was Sullivan's voice, no longer calm but urgent, commanding, "Don't you dare check out on me, Hawkins. We've got too much work left to do." Then the darkness claimed her completely, carrying her away from the pain, away from the mission, away from her record-breaking achievement. The question of whether she would survive to see its impact remained unanswered as the helicopter raced toward safety. Consciousness returned to Alex in fragments. First came sound, the rhythmic beeping of medical equipment, hushed professional voices, the distinctive whir of a military transport aircraft. Then sensation, the dull throb of pain in her side, the tightness of bandages, the cool flow of oxygen. Finally, awareness she was alive, wounded but stable, being transported to a military medical facility. She forced her eyes open, blinking against the harsh light. A medical technician noticed her stirring and moved quickly to her side. "Easy, ma'am," he said, checking her vitals. "You're on a medical transport. We're about 30 minutes from Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany." Alex tried to speak but found her throat painfully dry. The technician offered water, supporting her head as she sipped. "Colonel Sullivan?" she managed to ask. "He's fine, no injuries. He's been coordinating with command since extraction." Alex nodded, unsurprised. Sullivan had decades of combat experience, including emergency medical training. "How bad?" she asked, assessing her own condition. "Single gunshot wound to the left side. The round penetrated below your body armor, passed through your lateral abdominal wall, missed vital organs, but caused significant blood loss." Alex absorbed this information with the same analytical approach she applied to ballistic calculations, a survivable wound with proper treatment, a temporary setback rather than a career-ending injury. The privacy curtain surrounding her bed parted. Colonel Sullivan entered, his weathered face showing the strain of recent events. When he saw she was conscious, visible relief washed over his features. "Welcome back to the land of the living, Sergeant," he said, his gruff tone belied by the warmth in his eyes. "Mission status?" she asked weakly. Sullivan shook his head with a hint of admiration at her focus. "Mission accomplished completely. Al-Zarqawi eliminated. Intelligence secured. Chemical weapon components neutralized." He pulled a chair closer to her bed and sat down, lowering his voice. "Your shot has already entered Legend, Hawkins. 3,847 meters, confirmed and documented. You've extended your own record by 600 meters. Alex felt a strange detachment from this achievement. In the shadow of her brush with death, even this historic accomplishment seemed secondary. "The program?" she asked. "Secure and expanding?" Sullivan assured her. "General Harrison has authorized the development of the Extreme Long-Range Sniper program. You'll be running it once you're cleared for duty." He leaned forward slightly. "Which brings me to your recovery. The medical team estimates 3 months before you're cleared for full duty." Alex frowned. 3 months felt like an eternity. Too long. "Non-negotiable," Sullivan replied firmly. "Even exceptional soldiers need time to heal." After Sullivan departed, Alex slipped back into unconsciousness. Her dreams filled with trajectories, wind patterns, and the imagined faces of people she had yet to save. The next weeks passed in a blur of medical procedures and fitful sleep interrupted by pain. Alex endured it all with stoic determination, focusing on recovery with the same single-minded intensity she brought to marksmanship. 8 days after arriving at Landstuhl, she was deemed stable enough for her first official debriefing. General Harrison arrived personally, accompanied by Sullivan. For the next 2 hours, Alex provided a detailed account of the Syria mission, focusing on the technical aspects of the extreme-range engagement. Harrison listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "Exceptional work, Sergeant," he said when she finished. "The President has been personally briefed on your achievements." Alex acknowledged the compliment with a simple nod, uncomfortable with praise. "There's something else we need to discuss," Harrison continued, his tone shifting. "The success of the Extreme Long-Range Sniper program has attracted significant attention at the highest levels. The Joint Chiefs are recommending immediate expansion with dedicated facilities." "That's good news, sir." "It is, but it comes with challenges. The Russians and Chinese have taken notice of our capabilities. Intelligence suggests they're already working to develop similar programs." "They're playing catch-up," Sullivan interjected. "We have at least a 2-year advantage." "An advantage we need to maintain," Harrison emphasized. "Which brings me to the next phase. Once you're medically cleared, the Pentagon wants you to lead the expanded program. Full commission to captain with authority to build your team." Alex blinked in surprise. A direct commission to captain represented an exceptional advancement, skipping multiple ranks in recognition of her unique contributions. "I'd be honored, sir." Her recovery accelerated in the following weeks, driven by her unwavering focus and disciplined approach to rehabilitation. The medical team noted with amazement her rapid progress, though they still insisted on following proper protocols before clearing her for full duty. 20 days after her conversation with Harrison, Alex received preliminary medical clearance for limited duty. Her first day back in uniform marked a personal milestone. As she donned the captain's bars that symbolized her new rank, she felt a momentary disconnect, the reflection in the mirror, showing a different person than the staff sergeant who had first demonstrated the potential of extreme-range shooting mere months earlier. Yet something was missing. Despite her physical recovery, Alex found herself struggling with nightmares, reliving the moment she was shot, imagining what would have happened if she'd failed to spot the RPG operator. More troubling were doubts about her abilities. Would the injury affect her shooting? Had she merely been lucky with those impossible shots? These thoughts plagued her as she toured the program's new facility near Quantico, Virginia. The state-of-the-art complex combined research laboratories, indoor shooting ranges with advanced instrumentation, and dedicated spaces for training and simulation. Dr. Elaine Chen, a Chinese-American ballistics physicist recruited from DARPA, greeted Alex with enthusiasm before launching into an overview of developments during her absence. "We've incorporated your feedback on microclimatic transitions," Chen explained as they toured the ballistics lab. "The new predictive models show significant improvements in accuracy at extreme distances." Alex nodded, but part of her remained distant, trapped in memories of blood spreading across her tactical vest and the fear that had followed. Her first session on the range attracted an audience of researchers and trainees, all curious whether her injury had affected her legendary precision. Alex felt their eyes on her as she prepared her position behind a new prototype rifle. The pressure of expectation weighed on her, but she methodically pushed it aside, focusing on the familiar routine. The target stood at 3,000 meters, a challenging distance for most expert marksmen, but well within her established capabilities. As she settled into her shooting stance, her hands began to tremble slightly, an imperceptible movement to observers, but catastrophic for a sniper. Panic flashed through her mind. Had the injury damaged her nervous system? Had she lost her gift? In that moment of crisis, Alex closed her eyes and remembered her father's voice. "When doubt comes, return to fundamentals. Breathe, feel, trust." She breathed deeply, reconnecting with the core techniques that had formed the foundation of her skill. When she opened her eyes again, her hands were steady. The first shot broke cleanly. Through the spotting scope, Sullivan confirmed what everyone had been waiting to hear. Center mass, perfect shot. A subtle release of tension rippled through the observers. Alex proceeded to fire 4 more rounds, each finding its mark with unerring precision. Her skills remained intact. Months passed as Alex fully immersed herself in developing the program. Under her guidance, the first class of graduates achieved remarkable results, with several demonstrating consistent accuracy beyond 3,500 meters. 9 months after her injury, the program received an unexpected visitor. Commander Reynolds, now promoted to captain, arrived at the facility unannounced. "Captain Hawkins," he greeted her formally as they met in her office. "You're looking well." "Captain Reynolds," she acknowledged. "What brings you to our facility?" Reynolds placed a small package on her desk. "Brought you something from the team." Alex opened the package carefully, revealing a brass casing from a .50 caliber round. It had been polished to a high shine and mounted on a small wooden base with a simple inscription, 3,847 meters. History made. "The actual casing from your shot," Reynolds explained. "My team recovered it after extraction. Thought you should have it." "Thank you," Alex said, genuinely moved by the gesture. Reynolds nodded, then got to the real purpose of his visit. "I've been assigned to establish a new Joint Special Operations Task Force. The brass wants to incorporate your extreme range capabilities as a core component." As they discussed the potential collaboration, Reynolds' demeanor changed. He seemed hesitant, almost uncomfortable. "There's something else," he finally said. "Something I've recently discovered about your father." Alex tensed. "What about him?" 2 years ago, when I lost men in Iraq, I blamed inadequate sniper support. What I didn't know was that your father had filed a report suggesting the mission was compromised from within." Reynolds paused, his expression grim. That report was buried because the suspected individual had high-level political connections. "Who?" Alex asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Colonel Victor Hayes, Deputy Director of Intelligence Operations for the region." The name hit Alex like a physical blow. Hayes was one of the most respected intelligence officers in the military, with direct access to the Joint Chiefs. "My team has been quietly investigating," Reynolds continued. "We believe Hayes has been selling operational information to foreign intelligence services for years, but we can't touch him without concrete proof." Alex struggled to process this revelation. Her father had known about a traitor potentially responsible for American deaths, including Reynolds' men, and his warning had been ignored. "Why are you telling me this now?" Reynolds met her gaze directly. "Because intelligence suggests Hayes is meeting with his foreign handler next week, a mountain resort in the Caucasus region. It's our only chance to catch him in the act, and possibly our only shot at eliminating a major security breach." "What's the distance?" Alex asked, already knowing the answer would be extreme. "Our only viable position is 4,600 meters from the target." The room fell silent. Even with all their advances, 4,600 meters exceeded anything they had achieved nearly 800 meters beyond her current record. "That's beyond our tested range capabilities," she said quietly. "I know," Reynolds acknowledged, "but conventional options carry too much risk of detection." He paused. "I wouldn't ask if there was any other way." Alex stared at the brass casing on her desk, the physical reminder of what she had already accomplished against impossible odds. If her father had tried to expose Hayes, she owed it to his memory to finish what he had started. "I'll need Dr. Chen and the new prototype rifle," she said finally, "and every bit of environmental data you can get me on the location." Reynolds nodded, relief evident in his face. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Alex replied. "I haven't made the shot." The following days were consumed with intensive preparation. The prototype rifle, codenamed Ghostmaker, featured a carbon composite barrel, specialized ammunition, and an AI-integrated sighting system designed for extreme distances. 3 nights before the operation, Alex found herself alone on the outdoor range, practicing under starlight. The sound of footsteps behind her revealed Sullivan's approach. "Thought I'd find you here," he said, settling beside her. "How's it coming?" "The rifle's performing beyond expectations," she replied, "but 4,600 meters. It's pushing beyond what we thought possible." Sullivan was quiet for a moment. "There's something I haven't told you, Alex. Something about your father." She turned to look at him, surprised by the use of her first name. "Roger and I weren't just fellow snipers," Sullivan continued. "We were part of Unit 563, a classified sniper team formed during the Cold War to eliminate nuclear threats. Your father, Thomas Reynolds, and I were among the founding members." "Why tell me this now?" Sullivan's face showed a weariness beyond physical exhaustion. "Because I'm running out of time to pass on what matters. I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months, maybe less." The revelation struck Alex like a physical blow. "Sir, No need," Sullivan interrupted gently. "I've had a good run. But there's something your father wanted you to have when the time was right." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a sealed envelope, yellowed with age. "He gave this to me before he died, made me promise to give it to you when you were ready." With trembling fingers, Alex opened the envelope and began to read. "My dearest Alex, if you're reading this, you've already done what many thought impossible. Sullivan wouldn't give you this letter otherwise. What I never taught you, what I couldn't teach you until you were ready, is something we called the Chimera Method. It's a mental state beyond normal focus where the shooter becomes one with every environmental variable, not just calculating them, but feeling them as extensions of yourself. This technique wasn't created by our military. It was originally developed by the KGB's specialized sniper program and obtained by an American deep cover agent during the Cold War. That agent was your mother. Elizabeth wasn't just a civilian analyst, as I've always told you. She was one of the most gifted intelligence operatives of her generation. She extracted the Chimera documents at great personal risk, but was compromised during exfiltration. She survived long enough to deliver both the intelligence and you, my beautiful daughter. The gift you have, your extraordinary connection to the environment, comes from her as much as from my training. When you feel the wind speaking to you, that's her legacy living on. I've always known you were destined for something beyond ordinary limits. Trust yourself, Alex. When everything seems impossible, close your eyes, find the stillness, and let the world speak to you. With eternal love and pride, Dad. Alex stared at the letter, tears streaming down her face. All these years, she'd never known the truth about her mother, a hero who died giving birth to her after completing a vital mission. Did you know? She asked Sullivan. About Elizabeth? Yes. She was remarkable, just like her daughter. Sullivan placed a hand on her shoulder. Your father believed the Chimera method could extend effective range beyond anything we've achieved, but it requires complete integration of mind, body, and environment, a skill few possess naturally. Alex carefully folded the letter. How do I learn this technique? You already know the fundamentals. Your father taught you without labeling it befriending the wind, feeling rather than just measuring. The Chimera method is that approach taken to its ultimate conclusion. Sullivan rose to leave. Get some rest. Tomorrow, I'll show you the missing pieces. The day of the mission dawned clear and cold. Alex, Sullivan, and a minimal support team established position on a forested ridgeline overlooking the exclusive mountain resort where Hayes would meet his handler. Intelligence confirmed Hayes had arrived the previous evening. The meeting was scheduled for 800 inches, a private cabin with large windows overlooking the valley. Alex methodically set up her position, the Ghostmaker rifle anchored to a specialized carbon fiber tripod. Environmental sensors fed data to her tactical computer, building a comprehensive model of the atmospheric conditions. Distance confirmed at 4,627 meters, she reported quietly. Wind variable, 3 distinct layers with different directions. Temperature gradient steep from our position to target. Sullivan nodded, watching through his spotter scope. Target building under observation, no movement yet. Alex performed her final checks, then settled into position behind the rifle. This was the moment everything had led to her father's training, her mother's legacy, her own hard-won experience and recovery. Hayes is entering the room, Sullivan reported. Meeting appears to be starting. Copy, Alex acknowledged, standing by for positive ID on second individual. Seconds ticked by as they waited for visual confirmation of the foreign intelligence officer. Second subject confirmed, came the update. Matches known Russian SVR operative Andrei Petrov. You have green light. Alex took a deep breath, then closed her eyes. Rather than fighting the nervous energy, she embraced it, using her father's techniques to channel it into heightened awareness. She recalled Sullivan's instruction on the final element of the Chimera method, the mental visualization of becoming the bullet's path, feeling every molecule of air it would pass through. In her mind, Alex saw not just the trajectory, but experienced it, the crosswinds, the temperature layers, the subtle pressure changes. She felt rather than calculated the minute adjustments needed. When she opened her eyes, she made settings that contradicted several of the computer's recommendations, trusting what she felt over what the machine measured. "Send it when ready," Sullivan whispered. Alex controlled her breathing, feeling her heart rate slow as she entered the deepest focus state of her career. The crosshairs settled on a point that seemed disconnected from the actual target, the precise location where physics, mathematics, and instinct told her the bullet needed to travel. The trigger broke cleanly under steady pressure. The rifle roared, its powerful report echoing across the valley as the massive .50 caliber round began its journey through the morning air. For most people, 6.2 seconds passes in the blink of an eye. For a sniper waiting to see if the most challenging shot in history finds its mark, it is an eternity stretched beyond comprehension. Alex remained perfectly still, maintaining her position behind the rifle. Sullivan watched through his spotter scope, tracking the distant target. The silence stretched taut with anticipation. "Impact," Sullivan finally announced, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "Target eliminated. Perfect shot. 4,627 meters." A wave of stunned relief passed through the team. They had just witnessed the most extraordinary feat of marksmanship in military history, a shot that experts would have declared impossible. "Confirmed kill." Reynolds' voice came through their secure communication. Hayes and his contact both down. Intelligence team moving to secure documents. Beginning extraction sequence. As they quickly packed their equipment and prepared to withdraw, Alex remained momentarily still, absorbing the magnitude of what had just occurred. The impossible shot had found its mark, bringing justice for her father's buried warning and eliminating a traitor who had cost American lives. Yet even in this moment of unprecedented achievement, her mind was already calculating the implications, how the techniques could be refined, how the technology could be improved, how the boundaries could be pushed even further. "Captain," Sullivan said quietly, appearing beside her, "time to move." Alex nodded, securing her rifle with practiced efficiency. As they departed the position, she cast one final glance at the distant resort, now visible only as a tiny cluster of structures in the vast mountain landscape. One shot, one moment of perfect harmony between human skill, mathematics, and inherited instinct. One more redefinition of what was possible. 5 years later, Major Alexandra Hawkins stood at the podium in Quantico, addressing the graduation ceremony of the 15th class of the Sullivan-Hawkins Extreme Range Precision Shooting Academy. "When we began this journey," she told the assembled graduates, "a shot beyond 2,500 meters was considered impossible. Today, each of you has successfully engaged targets at 4,000 meters under variable conditions." After the ceremony, she met with General Reynolds, recently promoted following his exemplary leadership of the Joint Special Operations Task Force they had built together. "Sullivan would be proud," Reynolds said as they walked the grounds of the facility named after the colonel who had passed away peacefully 3 years earlier. "He saw the potential before anyone else did," Alex agreed. They entered the research wing where Dr. Chin was supervising tests on the next generation of precision systems. The technology had advanced dramatically, incorporating advanced AI-assisted environmental modeling and revolutionary propellant formulations. The Russians and Chinese have finally fielded their own extreme range capabilities. Reynolds noted, reviewing the intelligence briefing on his tablet, "But we maintain a significant advantage. Their best shooters are achieving 3,900 meters consistently." "The technology can be replicated," Alex replied. "But the methodology, the integration of mathematical precision with environmental intuition, that's harder to teach." An aide approached with an urgent communique. Another crisis was developing, another impossible mission that would require their unique capabilities. As they reviewed the details, the familiar rhythm of planning began. "Remember when you thought I couldn't make that first shot?" Alex asked with a hint of a smile. Reynolds shook his head ruefully. "My biggest professional misjudgment. Won't happen again." He extended his hand. "Partners?" Alex clasped it firmly. "Partners." As they moved toward the operations center, Alex reflected on Sullivan's words from years ago. Legacy comes not from seeking recognition, but from pushing boundaries others accept as fixed. The program they had built together, the lives they had saved, the capabilities they had created, these would outlast them all. One impossible shot had changed everything. But the real legacy wasn't measured in meters or records. It was measured in the transformation of what an entire generation of warriors believed was possible. In her pocket, Alex carried 2 brass casings, one from her first childhood shot with her father, and one from the 4,627-meter miracle that had secured her place in history. Between them lay the story of a legacy fulfilled and a horizon of possibility forever expanded.